What you just saw were NATO's military drills. In June, 16 NATO allies conducted a major military exercise. Finland and Sweden participated too. There were 45 ships, more than 75 aircraft and 7,500 troops. Such drills will become a regular feature now. Yesterday we told you how Europe could become the new battleground because Europe feels threatened by Russia. European leaders are making some dire predictions. The top general of the British forces has given some advice. He says the United Kingdom should prepare for war. Germany too is worried. It has announced a fresh round of deployments. Europe is now adopting a Cold War doctrine on Gravitas tonight. That's what we'll discuss. The annual NATO summit ended yesterday. NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg ended the event with a warning. He declared that Russia is, quote-unquote, the most significant and direct threat to NATO today. And the implications of a full-scale war with Russia would be dire.
At the same time, we also know that this can get worse. Because if this becomes a full-scale war between Russia and NATO, then we'll see suffering, damage, death, destruction at a scale which is much, much worse than what we see in Ukraine today.
Suffering at a scale that's much worse than Ukraine. Why is the NATO chief, in fact, worried? The military alliance has released an assessment. It has highlighted three major concerns. Concern number one, NATO says Russia is trying to destabilize northern and eastern Europe. Concern number two, the Russian military buildup. NATO says Russian forces have a presence in three regions, the Baltic Sea, the Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. These regions are dangerously close to NATO member states, hence the military threat. And concern number three, Russia's relationship with Belarus. NATO believes there is now a tight military integration between Moscow and Minsk. And that challenges NATO's security and interests. This is the assessment as of today. It will change. It will change because Vladimir Putin has vowed to match any NATO deployment toe-to-toe. The US is driving NATO's aggressive moves, but Europe is no more on the sidelines. Major European partners are stepping up their contribution. Let's start with the United Kingdom. General Patrick Sanders is the new Chief of General Staff of the British Army. He took charge last month. This week, he gave a speech. It was more like a warning. General Sanders said the UK should prepare for war. And I have the quote with me. In Ukraine, we've seen the limitations of deterrence by punishment. We must stop Russia seizing territory rather than expecting to respond to a land grab with a delayed counter-offensive. To succeed, the British Army, in conjunction with our NATO allies and partners, must be in place or especially high readiness, ideally a mix of both. Tripwires are not enough. The British government seems to agree. This week, they boosted their deployments to NATO. Britain is increasing its troop strength in Europe. London plans to keep more than 1,600 troops in Estonia. The soldiers will be equipped with helicopters and artillery systems. And that's not all. The UK plans to expand its NATO headquarters in Tallinn. It will be led by a brigadier. What about his responsibilities? Supporting the rapid deployment of troops if needed. The United Kingdom is adding more firepower to NATO forces. It will send RAF Typhoon and F-35 fighter jets, also aircraft carriers. These will be made available to NATO's Supreme Allied Commander for Europe. And this is the general who directs all NATO military operations. Now let's talk about Germany. What are Berlin's plans? Germany would maintain a regional marine command in the Baltic Sea and a tank division with 15,000 soldiers, 60 aircraft and 20 naval units. Here is what German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said about this.
NATO has once again changed its view on Moscow. Through its aggressive politics, Russia has become a threat again for Europe and for the alliance. It threatens the international order. NATO will therefore improve its defense capabilities, especially when looking at the security of its members on its eastern flank.
Insbesondere mit Blick auf die Sicherheit ihrer Mitglieder entlang der Ostflanke.
Russia's actions are a threat to us, so we are responding. Europe's eastern flank is at the center of this response. It looks just like a battleground now. 8 countries represent the new front line against Russia. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania and Bulgaria. There are at least 300,000 soldiers being deployed here. This region is under 24/7 air surveillance. A little further back, NATO members have stationed carrier strike groups, warships from the United States, Italy, the United Kingdom and France. These guard the waters in and around Eastern Europe. Now join the dots. Look at the expanse and the level of deployments. To say the situation is tense is an understatement. Vladimir Putin's actions in Ukraine are making things worse. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.